Historic change at the Kremlin, the hammer and sickle falls. The Russian flag takes its place. Mikhael Gorbachev says goodbye. In this country, the spirit of Christmas is alive and well, and fear among the Icemen that their world may be going to waste. This is the CBS Evening News. Good evening. I'm Harry Smith, sitting in tonight for Dan Rather. Merry Christmas. Just before the Kremlin cameras clicked on today, Mikhail Gorbachev said to himself, quote, "When you have to go, you have to go." He then officially resigned as president of the Soviet Union and turned over the nuclear codes to the new top man, Russia's Boris Yeltsin. You are looking at a live shot of the Russian flag flying tonight over the Kremlin. Tom Fenton begins our coverage of this historic day.
Tonight, the red flag was taken down from the Kremlin, where it has flown since the 1917 revolution. The Soviet Union it symbolized is now dead. In its place, they raised the flag of Boris Yeltsin's Russia. Mikhail Gorbachev, the eighth and last ruler of the communist empire founded by Lenin, announced he was quitting. He appeared sad and broken, but hoped history would give him credit.
Society has been granted its freedom, has been politically and spiritually unchained, and that's our biggest achievement.
The world, too, benefited when Gorbachev appeared on the scene.
The Cold War is over. The arms race has been stopped, along with the insane militarization of the country that has distorted our economy, our mentality, and morality.
It's the former Soviet Union that is now in trouble. Gorbachev acknowledged that he has left the country in a dangerous state.
The old system has crumbled before the new one has begun to work, and the crisis in society has become greater. I know of the dissatisfaction with the current situation, the bitter criticism of the government, and of my own performance.
In many respects, the living conditions of the Russians are now worse than when Gorbachev took over. But people watched his farewell speech more in sadness than in anger. He had a wonderful beginning, this woman says, but a sorrowful end. I personally supported him, and now I'm simply sorry for him, both as a politician and as a person.
And I am concerned that you are no longer citizens of a great country. The consequences may turn out to be very difficult for everyone. It's critically important to preserve the democratic achievements of the past few years.
The future now looks grim for the citizens of the former Soviet Union. Prices for food and energy in Russia will go up several 100% next week. There's a prospect of mass unemployment, and civil war is brewing in the shattered outreaches of this once great superpower. In a way, the country is back to 1917. Gorbachev came on the scene as a superstar politician, a dazzling reformer in the eyes of the world. He made his exit as a failure in the eyes of his countrymen, but given the size of his contribution to world peace, a magnificent failure. Tom Fenton, CBS News, Moscow.
President Bush developed a warm relationship with Gorbachev, and he will say goodbye in a Christmas night address from the Oval Office. More about that from correspondent Susan Spencer at the White House. Good evening, Susan.
He's emphasized his enormous personal regard for Gorbachev, and tonight's address will emphasize that. He will also stress in this address that the U.S. is firmly committed to the same peaceful transition to democracy that Gorbachev says he supports.
The former president of the former Soviet Union gave the news to Mr. Bush in a personal phone call. Hardly surprising, after years of superpower summits, economic meetings, and most recently the peace conference in Madrid, they've been George and Mikhail to one another for some time now.
You want to go first? You want?
In fact, Mr. Bush has been criticized for allowing that friendship to get in the way of judgment, for sticking with Gorbachev and the center when there was no center, when Gorbachev effectively was a man without a country. But tonight, the president will mark his departure with this speech, a spokesman said, because the historic significance is so great to the United States in terms of the future of nuclear arms control and the development of these republics. Mr. Bush is expected to again reassure that the nuclear situation poses no threat, and looking ahead may repeat his plans to formally recognize 5 of the 12 republics, Russia as the successor to the old Union, and Ukraine, Armenia, Kazakhstan, and Belarus. He may also discuss the need for more Western aid.
Of course, President Bush could do all of that in a simple statement. But not only does he really want to formally tip his hat to Gorbachev tonight, there are more than a few political advisors in the White House who think that in these troubled times, it never hurts Mr. Bush to go on television and, quote, look presidential, even if the subject is foreign affairs. Harry?
Susan, how does the White House view Boris Yeltsin?
Problematic might be the best word for that. As you probably know, the first time Boris Yeltsin came to Washington, the White House essentially snubbed him. The second time, he did get to stand in the Rose Garden and listen to Mr. Bush talk about Mr. Gorbachev. That's obviously changed. The president has talked to Yeltsin twice in the last 3 days. This is a relationship that I think is going to take some nurturing, and nurtured it will be, given what's at stake.
Susan Spencer of the White House, thank you. CBS News will carry live coverage of the president's speech tonight at 9 Eastern Time. When Ronald Reagan started holding summit talks with Mikhail Gorbachev, it marked the beginning of the end of the Cold War. Today, Mr. Reagan described Gorbachev as a courageous leader who will live forever in history. With more now about Gorbachev's remarkable rise and fall, we are joined from Moscow by CBS News correspondent and Soviet expert Jonathan Sanders. Jonathan, good evening.
Good evening, Harry. Harry, I think we have to measure Mikhail Gorbachev according to a yardstick of some basic freedoms. Gorbachev gave the people freedom of speech and expression. He gave them freedom of religion. Most importantly, he gave them freedom from fear. He smashed totalitarianism. He took the KGB out of people's lives. He ended the inevitability that people would live under communism. He took away fear of a Cold War and nuclear destruction. But he failed to deliver freedom from want. Freedom from want in people's bellies, freedom from want of being able to define themselves as an ethnic or national group. That was his failure, Harry.
Seeing incredible violence down in Georgia, might that likely spread to other parts of the republics?
Harry, democracy is very fragile. There's not toleration yet ingrained here. Take what's going on in Georgia. It's a good example. People are fighting in the streets, fighting against the democratically elected president of that republic, saying he went from being a man who was elected as a Democrat, a former dissident, to being a dictator. And those people have lots of conventional weapons. In other places in the Soviet Union, you have tactical nuclear weapons, the little battlefield weapons. What if one of these extremist groups gets their hands on those? That's dangerous.
Jonathan Sanders in Moscow, thanks. Still ahead on the CBS Evening News, Christmas in America, a day of giving to those who need it most. 80,000 people turned out in St. Peter's Square today for Christmas at the Vatican. Pope John Paul called for new understanding in Europe following the end of the Soviet Union, and he issued a special plea to stop the violence in Yugoslavia. The Pope also called on the world to remember the suffering of the unemployed and the homeless. As Bruce Morton reports, hardship, hope, and help were all part of this Christmas Day in America.
Walk the streets of any city today, and they were all you saw, the homeless, shuffling down a street, huddled in a doorway, as abandoned as yesterday's toys. The people for whom there was no room at the inn.
It's good of them to do it. It's just great. The hotel that would go all out for people.
But in Oklahoma City, there was room at this inn, a hotel which opened more than 100 rooms to the homeless. Big beds, clean sheets, and television. Kids liked that. No chance of a white Christmas in Miami, but homeless lining up for dinner, oh yes. Lots of food and gifts at Miami's Camilla's house, and lots of people Brother Harry Somerville says business is up this year.
We're getting a lot more women and children this year. We're getting a lot more Hispanics. We have some of the old familiar faces, but we're getting a lot of new faces due to unemployment.
Nobody is sure how many homeless there are. Everyone agrees there are more this recession year. A report from the U.S. Conference of Mayors says 13% more. This is a group called So Others Might Eat, which feeds the homeless in Washington. Down the street, the Salvation Army was feeding another crowd and handing out gift backpacks, too. Backpacks loaded with little presents, soap, shampoo, writing paper, and the like.
Well, I feel like Santa Claus, because I'm providing for them.
In New York, some formerly homeless people worked to feed those who are homeless still. These men are part of a program which teaches the homeless to fix up old houses, then live in the low-rent apartments they've helped build.
It's a very relieving feeling to me to have your home again. That's what I think.
But they are the few. This place, the Midnight Mission in Los Angeles, is more typical. A soup kitchen, 3 meals a day, big crowds. A lot of volunteers worked very hard today to make this a better day for the homeless. The surveys say we resent them more than we used to, but Christmas is, in a sense, their festival.
So Jesus was born to a homeless couple outdoors in a stable, in a manger. So we think about the homeless, we must not look upon them as derelict and dismiss them. That's the mistake Rome made 2,000 years ago.
Tomorrow, most of the volunteers will go back to their regular jobs. Most of the homeless will go back to the street. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
Coming up, Bob Simon with news from the Holy Land this Christmas season. In Jerusalem today, Mayor Teddy Kollek led a protest against Jews settling in the Arab part of the city. Kollek called the settlers obscene and the trend dangerous. And Israeli peace activists accused militant settlers in the occupied territories of taking the law into their own hands. Bob Simon has more.
Israeli peace activists planted young olive trees in a Palestinian grove on the West Bank, a gesture of peace and reconciliation in this holiday season. Well, perhaps, but with a backdrop of violence and terror. This chapter in the never-ending story began when Palestinian terrorists opened fire on the car of an Israeli settler, a woman. She suffered only light injuries, but 3 Israeli civilians have been killed in shooting attacks since late October. The next day, soldiers bulldozed the trees from the olive grove where the shots had come from. When the soldiers left, settlers cut down more of them. The Battle of the Trees had begun. On Sunday, leaders of the Israeli peace movement planted new seedlings in the now empty lot, declaring that Zionism is not vandalism.
We want to show world public opinion that there is another kind of Zionism. This is the real Zionism.
An hour later, settlers uprooted the plants as soldiers looked on. A purely symbolic act, of course, understood by all. It's not just that these are the trees which yield olive branches, it's that to Palestinians, olive trees symbolize nationhood. Meanwhile, in Ramallah, Palestinians were stepping outdoors for the first time after a 2-week curfew, imposed after the killing of a settler, to see what settlers had done to their property. But in that olive grove, new hope was being planted in the ground.
We are intending to come again and again and again to replant and to replant if necessary, in order to prove that we are not giving up of planting this symbol of peace.
They'll have to. Settlers uprooted the trees again a day later. Israeli and Palestinian extremists are talking to each other through the trees, almost, one would think, coordinating strategy. Arabs aim at Israeli cars, Israelis at Arab olive groves. But they're both really targeting the peace talks in Washington. And their objective is the same: kill those talks before springtime, before they have a chance to blossom. Bob Simon, CBS News, on the West Bank.
Stay with us now for more CBS News, including the frigid view from the bottom of the world. Much attention is focused today on that jolly old elf from the North Pole. But there's a lot doing at the South Pole as well. Scientists there are working to preserve a great wilderness and perhaps the future of the planet. Jerry Bowen reports from Antarctica.
A typical spring day at the bottom of the world. At the South Pole, a researcher measures ultraviolet rays, an indication of ozone depletion. Far away, in the eerie, dry valleys, one of the few places not under ice, another scientist looks for signs of global warming.
It does seem that in these lakes that local climate is changing to the extent where the ice sheet may be getting thinner.
And near the main American science base at McMurdo, a heavy cargo transport plane and a slow-moving seal are on final approach to the ice runways of the frozen Ross Sea, sliding and slipping symbols of a controversy over man's role here, the human factor, on the world's only unspoiled continent.
This continent is here for science, to do science, and to do it in the purest way. And to mess it up like they're doing is wrong.
So what we are seeing now is increasing pressures to clear up mistakes in the past.
Mistakes of the past, the staging huts of the early explorers, personal belongings too, left behind in the aftermath of the turn-of-the-century race to the South Pole. Some 8 decades later, it all remains, freeze-dried for posterity, perfectly preserved, the seals they slaughtered, the garbage they dumped. The trashing of Antarctica did not stop then, but it's supposed to stop now with a new international treaty. Major changes signed into law. No mineral or oil exploration for the next half-century. Limits on ocean pollution. Even the early explorers would be hard-pressed to get to the pole today. Sled dogs are banned. Canine distemper is a threat to the seals.
And in this unusual environment, the most visible change concerns McMurdo itself, a station known for years as Little Los Angeles because of the black cloud that hung in the air. Black smoke from trash burning in the town dump.
The United States is in the midst of a 5-year, $30 million effort to clean up the past. No more open burning, no more dump. It was closed after asbestos was discovered. Contaminated soil, barrels full of dangerous PCBs, acids, oil, and human waste are being shipped back to America for disposal.
It was not done deliberately. I think people were acting in accordance with the spirit of the day.
Some of the damage may not be undone. Divers are conducting studies of marine life beneath the ice just offshore from McMurdo, where oil spills once occurred and garbage was routinely dumped. Parts of the seabed are lifeless.
We transplanted communities from this area, good, healthy, rich communities, into Winter Quarters Bay, and they crashed, or most of the animals died off.
The United States is still pumping raw sewage into the bay. A new, cleaner-burning incinerator is in use, but being challenged in court by an environmental group which says the cleaning of Antarctica needs to be accelerated.
And it's going to take a long time, and we'd just like to see more money put into it. It is the Antarctic. It's not Hoboken, New Jersey.
I think that they should step back and perhaps take a broader view. Give those who work here and have knowledge of it an opportunity to work the problem out.
Man has actually set foot on very little of Antarctica, a land half again as large as America. The question is how much this fragile continent can tolerate and how much time it will take to solve the existing problems in a land where virtually everything becomes frozen in time. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Ross Island, Antarctica.
And the CBS Evening News will continue this Christmas night in a moment. This is a season of traditions, and we have one here on the CBS Evening News. Each year, we say a special thank you to the men and women who work behind the scenes to put this broadcast on the air. As we leave you tonight, we'd like to show you the names of people who don't normally get a credit. For Dan Rather, I'm Harry Smith. Merry Christmas.
Yourself a
From now on, our troubles will be out of sight. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Make the Yuletide gay. From now on, our troubles will be miles away. Here we are as in olden days, happy golden days of yore. Faithful friends who are dear to us, gather near to us once more. Through the years, we all will be together, if the fates allow. Hang a shine